the Matt Logan Show. Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. It is going to be a fun day today. We are going to talk about border wall. We are going to talk about the Biden administration building the wall because it saves lives.
Cleaning up a mess.
Cleaning up a mess.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for your emails, by the way. Been getting flooded with your emails. I really appreciate it, especially the criticism. It's really great. You learn from that as well, and you learn how to look at things from different angles and stuff like that. So it's AskMatt at mattloganspeaks.com. That means that your email, it only goes to me right here to these two eyes, so I will get it for sure instead of some of the messages that I keep getting and I miss. So there it is. That's a little plug for us today, Craig. Biden came out in January of 2021, right after being sworn in. He was very adamant about not a dime being spent on the border wall, on the Mexican border wall, of course, as we're talking about. I have had the insane privilege to do what I do, to pay the bills that I have, and that has brought me across that border in Texas and Arizona, but not Florida.
Unless you're delivering amphibious vehicles.
Well, I've been to Florida. But
Okay. Okay.
But no, I've driven across. One of the big ones that they were under the bridge, living and stuff for a while, and thousands of people. I drove through there. The name escapes me for some reason.
McAllen, Texas?
No. Well, that was one of them, but it's a different one. But I don't know. I travel to so many places, I can never keep up with where I'm at. Let alone remember.
Yeah.
But I was actually in near Yuma. Actually, I should say in Yuma, and I couldn't find a hotel. And I was wondering, what's going on? Well, they filled up a whole bunch of hotels with the migrants coming across, the illegal migrants coming across the border, because they didn't have anywhere to house them.
They didn't have a detention center built.
Yes, the child detention center that Trump had kids in cages, that one.
That were there for like 10 years. Okay.
Yeah. Obama, I believe, built them.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's something like that. But, I mean, who's counting?
I don't judge.
It's interesting about where people balance the truth with fiction, and, they only look at the left side of things instead of the middle and the right side of things. And I don't mean politically. I mean just simply there's a whole picture to look at.
Absolutely.
And so, but that started to open my eyes and start looking at these things. Like, what do you mean I can't find a hotel? It's a pretty big area, a lot of hotels. And I've ended up finding one, and it wasn't one that I really cared a whole lot for, but I was able to find one and got a couple hours of sleep anyway. Slept with one eye open kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so recently, the Biden administration came out and said that they are going to fill in and fix what the Trump administration left behind.
Yeah. Play on words.
Yeah.
It's you can say it however you want, but they're finishing the wall.
Correct. Well,
Yes.
in Arizona.
In Arizona, yes.
They were pretty clear that they weren't finishing the wall.
No, they were
However,
fixing up the mess.
Yeah.
Cleaning up the mess.
Cleaning up the mess, yeah.
Right. And asked several times different ways. And the press secretary refused to say that they were
Karine Jean-Pierre. I'll say her name.
Yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
Refused to admit that they were finishing or filling in gaps, but simply said they were cleaning up the mess. But yet they were giving the money that was allocated for the wall back to the military. I don't know how they can clean up the mess and give the money back, but
Yeah, and I didn't think it was $8 billion to begin with.
I thought that was like more than the whole cost.
Yeah, I agree. So, I didn't look at the dollars and cents of it all, but I was pretty in shock when they said $8 billion, because my memory set, the way I remember seeing it was more around $4 billion for the entire wall between Texas and Arizona.
Right.
But look, the bottom line is when you don't look at things and say and be transparent about the problem is going to essentially get a whole lot larger. It's going to exacerbate the situation instead of actually fessing up and saying, you know what, we got it wrong. We should do this. There's been a lot of drugs coming over in Arizona. I was driving through Arizona also at a different time, and there was drones flying overhead. There was all kinds of border patrol. And a few days later, guess what I saw on the news? Huge fentanyl bust right in the area where I was driving through.
That's scary.
That is really weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just interesting that you were there when that was all going down and being able to see that firsthand.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
And I could tell you all kinds of stories. I mean, pickup trucks full of people, clearly not on the road and clearly, doing things that they might not be legally doing.
Right.
A lot of people that have been detained I've seen alongside the road as well. And it's to ignore that it's a problem is pretty ridiculous in my mind. But hey, we're just a couple of bozos being brave and going ahead and saying what we need to say. Yeah. And whether here, I was on a phone call today, and what I said is just because I'm wrong doesn't make you right. And that's so true. I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm telling you what I see.
Right.
And
your opinion and your impression.
Right. And I've seen things firsthand.
More than most people, probably.
Yeah, a lot more than most people.
Right. And, I mean, it's a sad situation overall. I don't think anybody that has a heart is against people making a better life for themselves. But when we're allowing these holes in the borders, people with bad intentions are going to take advantage of people in bad situations and, bring them over in not good ways. I'm all for people coming through the proper processes and whatnot, so that they're safe. But when they're coming over, hidden through the walls in the middle of the night and they're not prepared with supplies to get through a desert, that's when people start dying. And women and children are dying in the deserts because they're being taken advantage of. And that's the sad part of it. You get a semi full of immigrants that are dead because they were just trying to make a better way for themselves. But go through the process and come over the right way, and we'll take you in, but you got to go through the right process. Yeah,
and the process is kind of negative on the Mexico side. That's the problem. I've spoke with, I had a very lengthy conversation with a guy that, he did run across the border like 40 years ago. So, an old guy obviously now, but and I've been lucky enough. In California, he's been. I've called on him for my taxi driver when I've ever been in that area, and so we get to spend some time together when I'm there, and it's always interesting conversations. And so I flat asked him when all this stuff was going on. I'm like, hey, how did you get here? Because he was saying how dangerous it was for what was happening, and that they shouldn't be allowed to come over here like this, rather than just going and having some. Doing the right thing and going through the process and all that kind of stuff. And he said it's so different than back then. And he said, honestly, initially I came here legally. He said, regretfully, I did that, but he said I ended up, once I was here, going through the legal process. I went to court and had some things that were negatively affect his life and all that. But he said what's happening now is significantly different because they're mules, for one.
Yep.
And he says he knows this because he has family over there.
On the other side of the border.
On the other side of the border.
Yep.
And he said, they're using them as mules. They are having to sell themselves. So there's tons of human trafficking. And he said 40 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Right.
There was some of it, of course. But on the other hand, he said back then, if you didn't do it at the right time, you're going to get shot. I mean, he explained the whole thing. It's quite a story.
Wow.
Like, they literally would go to the border and climb the fence, or get ready to climb the fence, I should say. And then they knew these different shift changes. and they had minutes to do this, right? And they would climb the fence, get over the fence, and they'd run like heck.
Right. Get in the
And
bush.
hope they didn't get shot. Because he said there were people getting shot at and people dying.
Wow.
Now, this is his account of the story. I don't know. I mean, I'm taking that as word.
Right.
Don't know why 40 years later he would need to tell a story, like that. But nonetheless, it's his account, his story. So the reality of it is it is not safe the way this is happening. There is human trafficking. There are a ton of drugs coming across. And you know what the other reality is that nobody wants to face? It's not the Mexican people in large part. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people
Central American.
Yeah.
And people with bad intentions.
For sure. Very bad intentions.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really bad.
Yeah, there's people that want to hurt this country, and that's the open door to get in.
Yes, absolutely. How many people have they arrested? I don't remember what it is now. I looked earlier this week, but they've arrested like hardcore terrorists coming across the border, 20, 30 of them this year, whatever it was. I mean, we're talking like
That they caught.
that they caught the top of the top of the top.
Right.
And
how many made it through?
Exactly.
That's scary.
That's super scary.
Yeah, it scares the crap out of me.
I got to say, way to go, Biden administration. Build the wall, man.
Yeah.
But how
they're not building the wall. They're cleaning up the
No,
mess.
I'm not saying that's what they're saying. I'm saying build the wall, man.
Finish it, yeah.
And finish it in Texas. It would. So here's the way I look at it. They're doing this. The governor of Arizona, Ducey is his name. Different, not related to the Fox Ducey.
Okay.
Spelt differently and stuff. But anyway, he has come out and really put a lot of pressure on the Biden administration. And he has actually said, we're going to figure out how to do this if you're not going to do it, essentially.
Well, his state and his taxpayers are having to support all of the illegal migrants.
Yeah.
That's taxing. I mean, that's not cheap to do that.
No, absolutely not.
They have to do something.
Yeah. So this is a political move. It's a word game now. They're doing this. They're not saying, hey, we screwed up before because that looks bad.
They wouldn't admit guilt.
Never.
That they were incorrect.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but this is going to help their base. It's going to have a positive effect on their base of support, because their base of support too is saying this is pretty bad. This is going to help. In my opinion, it's going to help Democrats, it's going to help Republicans play a little bit better with Democrats, which I'm not sure is the right answer. But I'm saying that's a kind of chess move that way.
Right.
You're looking 3 or 4 moves down the road.
And this is also going to hurt the Democrats because they're going against what they said.
Well, it's going to really hurt the progressives
Right.
side of it. Like, I don't think the real, honest, like hardcore establishment Democrats, I think they're going to like this. Mm-hmm. I think it hurts them because they're shipping them up to D.C., shipping them up to New York, and this is a crisis all of a sudden. And there's thousands, but there's hundreds of thousands down on the border.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't know. We could go round and round in circles. I like to find solutions for things personally. I think, in my opinion, one of the things that's a solution is to say, look, we really shouldn't be allowing this flock of people to be coming through as large flocks that they are. This is dangerous. It will save lives, and both American lives and
the migrants'
and
lives. Yeah. How many? It'd be interesting to see if there was a statistic, and I don't know if there would ever be a way to find out how many people have died trying to get over the border. How many people have died in the deserts? We'll never know.
No.
From dehydration or murder or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's in the hundreds of thousands.
I mean, they made movies about some of that kind of stuff in the past, and
Right.
it's sad.
It's very sad.
And if you can't man up and say, we got this wrong. I think that's what's frightening to me, I guess. Anything else?
No.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
We got to keep our eyes open.
I think both parties need to stop acting like kids and sit down at the table and figure this out.
Yeah, it's gotten to a point where it's like our way or no way for frankly both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that there needs to be and probably will be a correction with that kind of mentality. And what I mean is the Republicans, I feel, looking at this more in the last couple of years than I have most of my life, I guess. I've really looked at it closely. I think it's time for the Republicans to not give ground. And I think they've given too much ground, and that shows up on the border like this when they're completely when the Democrats have complete control, essentially, of the country. Mm-hmm. And now it's time for the Republicans to say, this is the line, and we're not going to cross it anymore because you took way too much. It's the way I see it.
No, I can see that with what's happened the last few years. It seems like the left leaning has kind of gotten their way on just about everything, and I think they took advantage of that and have gone too far with like the wokeness of stuff, and hopefully things will kind of get back to balance in the center.
Yeah, and they're just so out of touch with reality. We talked about that before, and they're just out of touch.
Oh, yeah,
completely. And I'm a lot on the Republican side of things too are out of touch. I mean, their realities are not our realities, and they need to go and get the pulse of the people and stuff again.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a little bit last week too, and I've had some conversations with people this week of just playing dirty politics on both sides, and it's like you're pointing at one side for doing something unethical, but you're doing the same thing. Just stop it.
Right.
Be a good person. Do things the right way. You're not solving anything or benefiting anybody by just knock it off, grow up.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people that I enjoy having conversations with and even hanging out with that I don't agree with 100% of what their politics are or religion or any of that.
Oh, absolutely.
But you can really enjoy a person's perspective and not hate them or any of those other things, and still grill burgers together and go to the pub. We have pubs in the States, sort of, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But
they're around.
They're not really called pubs as much as they are. Anyway.
Just the Irish ones.
And that's what Reagan was really well known for was, they'd fight all day long, and 5 o'clock would come along and, they would go have a beer together, essentially. I mean, I don't know how, if they did go have a beer together, but they would go to these different things and meals, and they would get along just fine.
Right. Work is done. Now we're going to have civil conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's missing, and certainly the hyperbolic discourse gets you nowhere but increases your base. And it gets you nowhere as a society, in my opinion. But I digress, I guess. Hey, so I want to tell you, if you're listening still or if you're watching, we rely on the advertising budget essentially is you. If you want this show to grow, thank you. We appreciate that. And in order to do that, you need to hammer the like button. Hammer the share button. But I did get a message just very recently, and he said, I don't always agree with what you say. However, I really appreciate that you're saying it boldly and with an educated, I can't remember, I'm not going to say it perfectly, but with kind of an educated stance or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I do think through a lot of what I'm looking at and thinking about, in my opinion. But he said, he's afraid, right? He's afraid to comment or share it or anything like that because we're in a society of cancel culture, and I think that's sad. So don't be cancel culture people. That's all I have to say. Ask Matt at mattloganspeaks.com. Thanks again for watching or listening. We'll see you soon.